welcome back to the Constitutionals podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. I'm extending that so I can have noise over me moving the microphone. Welcome back in. Here we are with a very special episode, as you know, the midweek episode. If you've caught on to the schedule of the show, the midweek, Jesus Christ, slow down. The midweek episodes typically feature a long form interview. That's more or less what I try to keep it at. Sometimes I reach out and they're like, "Hey, you get 10 minutes." At which point I have to go, "All right," can't really complain. Other times, people go, "Yeah, I'm not doing anything. Let's talk for a little bit." And that's exactly what this comedian did. Today, I am talking to none other than Gabe Mollica, who is a comedian / performer. We'll get into that in a second. Who's performing his new show for the New York Fringe Festival. It's called Gabe Mollica, Horse Lawyer. Also, the Fringe Festival is called the New York City Fringe Festival, in case you don't know which New York. Sometimes you type in Atlanta on Google Maps and it's like Atlanta, Texas? No. If there is a bigger thing named that, we're going to go with that most of the time. The New York City Fringe Festival is going on at this point in time. And currently, I guess by the time this goes up, you can go see Gabe Mollica perform, display, Horse Lawyer on his last show on the 18th. Yeah. He's willing. We talk about this in the program, in this interview. We talk about how people should just go see art, go see a show, go see a movie, go see whatever. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Hopefully you'll like this. He's a funny guy. I've seen clips. You can see clips on his Instagram. And, you lose nothing except time going to go see something. But I urge you to go see this, because this seems like a very interesting solo show. Now, Gabe's already done solo shows, including one called Solo, which we also discuss, a show about friendship. But that was his first one. This is the second one, and it's better. I haven't seen either of them, but man, the second one's always going to be better because there's more time spent on it, or less time. There's a little more honing, and people know what they want. There are tons of great reviews about Gabe Mollica's work. And again, like I said, he's gone around. He's really taken his knife that is comedy to the whetstone that is the world, or his work, and honed it, sharpened it. Can you tell I just used that metaphor for something that I need to do to one of my knives? Been meaning to sharpen it for so long. It's still going through potatoes, but I don't want to have to struggle. And it's a nice knife. I got to get the stone out. Gabe is a nice guy, and he's very smart, and he knows exactly what he's talking about. He's very confident. Also, I've spoken with his comedy partner, his comedy video partner, Alexis Gay. If you remember her, I spoke to her a couple of months ago. She's a funny person. And they create videos together over there for social. And I like seeing them. I'm not kidding. I like seeing them pop up. It's very interesting. They've only done what would constitute in the world of making videos, content, as some people would call it. but in the world of making videos, they've only done a handful. It doesn't really matter. It feels like they've done more. Anyway, Gabe Mollica, and at some point, maybe this will be shot for video, or maybe this will open up doors to other avenues where he can perform a written thing, a written special. I likened him to Mike Birbiglia, who is my favorite comedian, hands down. And they have these great storytelling roots. They share these similar qualities where they're telling a long form story. And you get the title from a line in the story, much how like I get the title of episodes for this show in the middle of the show. Gabe Mollica, find him at the New York City Fringe Festival for a final performance for this show. For now, he'll probably take it out again somewhere. You can follow, if you want to follow Gabe, go to Instagram.com and follow him at Gabe Mollica. You can see clips of his off-Broadway show solo on YouTube. You can follow him on X if that's your thing. You can go on TikTok, Gabe Mollica Comedy. He's also got a email list for when he comes to your city. And he has an OnlyFans? Oh, no, it just says only and Wikipedia OnlyFans. Interesting. Okay, anyway, check that all out. Listen, if you want to see a video version of this interview, you can go to youtube.com/C+comedy, where you can see video versions of the other interviews I've done, including Alexis Gay, during a point where we talk about Gabe Mollica. You can see a video version of the other podcasts, LinkedIn Logs, which is the Jobs Podcast, Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show. Follow us on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky at C+ Comedy, me at Chad Black White. Now, enjoy this, Gabe Mollica. Thank you for being so flexible with this. What was it called? The jury duty thing was insane. Like
Yeah,
truly, they mailed me like a couple of days before, and then I did the online thing. I don't know if you like serve our country with a jury pool, and
yeah,
you have to go online now. And they sent me an email like the night before, and I was like, okay, I have to email this guy back.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no worries. That's cool. And where are you?
I'm in Atlanta.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've only done it on Long Island, so I know it's sort of different everywhere.
Okay.
But you didn't have to go in.
No, I didn't have to go in at all. That was a huge worry for me.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I get that. Um, but it is a cool thing, but you don't want to have to do it. Do you know what
No.
I mean? Like you don't have to be stuck there for 2 weeks. But yeah, man, happy to be flexible. Thank you for asking me to do this. Happy to.
Well, so you've done one run of the show. Well, not one run, but you've done one night of the show,
Yeah.
this current run, and then you have a couple more to go. How was that? How was that first night?
It was great. It was great. This is my second solo show, my second hour of narrative-based stand-up comedy.
Okay.
And the first show was like the only show I ever thought about making, if that
Mhm.
makes sense, where it was like it's like why I got into comedy. And then I did it, and then I was like, "Oh, do I have another show in me? Like, could I do this again?" And so it's been a really fun challenge to be like, "What else do I have to say?" And the show is sort of about marriage, house, kids,
Yeah.
the American dream, me sort of having a panic attack on my 32nd birthday, realizing that I don't have those things,
Mm.
and then sort of going back in time and telling different stories that are sort of related to marriage, house, kids.
Yeah.
And it's going really well. It's like really fun to do. I'm like suddenly, it took a long time because I think I loved my first show so much that ran off Broadway and I traveled it around the country and the world. And then I think I'm finally at a place now where I'm more excited to do this show than I am
Yeah.
to do the last show, which I did never thought would happen, to be honest with you.
That's great. What was developing this show like compared to the first one? Because the first one, you feel like you it might have taken longer because you feel like you don't know if you can make mistakes. Then this one, you're willing to try different things at a time. So how was that process?
Yeah, so the first one took years, like years and years and years, because I was starting at open mic. So I was doing it 2, 3 minutes at a time, and I'd never done anything like that before. You know, it's like I've never baked a cake before. Why would I be good at it? And so
Right.
it took years and years and years. This one, because I had done the process already, in some ways I could take like I just like knew the way to the highway, if that makes sense. Like I knew like, okay, I'm gonna need some big stories. I'm gonna need to come out and say this is what the show's about. I'm gonna need like different things along the way. Finding them is still difficult, like writing through them. Um, but the new process, so the way I do it now is I do the new hour once a month, and it's called Horse Lawyer, which is explained in the show. But I do it once a month for an hour, in a basement in Manhattan, and I record them and I send it to my director and we chat about it and I do notes and I get it transcribed so I can see it. I think it's really
Cool.
useful to see your comedy sort of like written out.
Yeah.
Because like even today I was looking at like you asked me how the last show went. Even today I was looking at like, oh, this middle story, which I love, is 17 minutes out of the hour. And I'm like, this could be 12 and a half minutes. Like, let me save that real estate. Like sometimes thinking about it mathematically is a little helpful where it's just like New York Fringe has to be an hour.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, ooh, that's just like 29% of the show is too much time. Do you know what I mean? Like I have a little bit of a math brain about that stuff,
Yeah.
so that I can be more artistic about some of the other things.
So have you done New York Fringe, or is this going to go to New York Fringe?
So this is New York Fringe right now. This
Right
is like
now.
the little
Okay.
run, yeah. And so I just did it. I had a theater fellowship in Rochester, New York, where they flew me out, and I got to live in Rochester for 2 weeks. They gave me an apartment in a car to develop the show,
Whoa.
which was really, really cool. And so I got to do that, 6 shows there, and then I have 4 shows at New York Fringe. So I sort of am seeing this as like a mini, like 10 show run.
Yeah.
And then my goal is to do what I did last time, which is run off Broadway and travel the country. But I kind of can't do so like the way these shows work, as opposed to like an hour of stand up, for instance, is I sort of develop them in clubs and then
Mhm.
turn it into theater. And the idea being like after it gets to a certain place for me personally, then I can do press. Then I'll try to like do, like the huge comedy podcasts or like TV.
Yeah.
Like that's when that stuff kicks in. But I can't commit to the press PR BS unless I believe in the show. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes I feel like people are too good at the press and the PR BS and they don't work enough on the show. And then I think some people spend too much time like being an artist, like trying to make it perfect
Hmm.
and then never do the press and PR stuff and then people don't see it. And so I think it's a really delicate balance, right? Of like how do I figure out what that balance is? And for me it's just like if I get to a point where I really believe in this new show and I'm getting there, then I'm hopefully in the next 12 months I'll be able to like do that off Broadway run.
Right. I see like a lot of people who go big too soon, and it feels like it's more like a monetary thing. And then versus, 20, 30 years ago, you could afford to be an artist because there wasn't that much at stake. We didn't have tariffs and inflation and high cost of living compared like in the
Yeah.
70s. You could be an artist. You go fuck around and like play a guitar and make some cash and still live
Yeah.
compared to today. But yeah, I mean, I feel like there's some vapidness that comes with people being too big. I was just looking through my email and somebody asked me to interview an influencer, and I went, "Who is this person? Like, what?
Sure,
She
sure.
has a like this. They have 1 million followers, but what is that going to give me in the end?"
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally hear you on all of that. There's a joke in my new show about how I was getting in 2017 I was getting my first time getting paid to do stand up. I got paid $25 a show.
Wow.
And I said I had just read a book about the 1979 strike in Los Angeles. The comedians went on strike and they went on strike for $25 a show. And so adjusted for inflation in 2017, I was getting fucked.
Yeah.
And it's true, like that's what they were arguing for back then, like where cost of living is down. College was $2,500 a year, maybe less,
Ugh.
and now college is, $100,000 a year, and we're still getting paid $25 a show. And so I think there's a real. I don't say that explicitly, but even just having this conversation with you makes me want to say it more explicitly, which is like, oh yeah, it's harder to be an artist now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're exactly right. And like you're incentivized. Like if I were your producer, I'd be like, yeah, you should probably talk to the influencer. You know what I mean? Like even though like we might not have a ton to talk about. it is like sometimes it's good for business or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I am fully drafting out an email as we speak, but it's I'll talk to anybody. I'm trying to open it up. I can't just stick with comedy. This is the ridiculous part. That's like what sticks me with everybody because I talked to a musician. He made music for makes music for TV shows and movies. I talked to him years ago, and I went, I can do more of this. I don't have to direct it to just comedic people. And then in the same way, you're a comedic storyteller, a lot like my favorite comedian is Mike Birbiglia.
Yeah.
So when did you take that step? When did you realize that you were a storyteller in your own right? Because that's something that's been going on for a millennia, is people just tell stories. So when you realize that you're good at it, what was that moment for you?
Yeah, so I think I sometimes I talk about my childhood and I'll say like my parents were not perfect. They made some mistakes. They were very good. The thing that I think they did the best was that they read to me every night as a kid. For me, like until I was like too old to be read to. You know, like it was like a thing that continued. And I love that. I'm very comforted by being told a story. And then in college, my best friend Nick sent me early Netflix. It was 2013.
Yeah.
He sent me the Birbiglia special, My Girlfriend's Boyfriend. And immediately, like I had always loved comedy. I grew up on Carlin and Cosby and all that. And immediately was like, oh, like I didn't know you could do that. Like I didn't
Right.
know you could tell one long story and it be exciting and funny and you pack in all the jokes you'd see at a club, but like I care about what happens to this character,
Yeah.
this human. I didn't know you could do that. And immediately I told my girlfriend at the time, I was like, "Oh, I think I want to do this like with my life." And her response to that was like, "Oh, like you're really impulsive." Like you and it was hard to explain to her. It's like, "No, no, no, like this is different. Like this feels like a thing that I could do." And then it just like took me 10 years to write that show, maybe less, maybe it took 8 years. But on the bus ride home back to college, I was visiting her in Boston. I like started working on the show, like a show. And one of those stories ended up in my first show. So like in some
Wow.
ways, like I was right. It just takes a really long time, man. Like I've been thinking about this a lot lately because this is doing my second show, which is like this process is so analog.
Hmm.
Like you have to get people in a room and you have to talk to them for an hour. And I always joke like early versions of the show, I'm like, I will resent you guys later for seeing this version, but like right now I need you to be here. And
Yeah.
so like you're my experiment. And that's why I don't charge very much money. Sometimes I give tickets away because I see it as a workshop. Um, and my theory about solo shows is like you kind of have to do it 100 times.
Yeah.
And after 100 times, like that's for me, at least in my experience with the first show, I did it 100 times. And basically around the 100th show, we cracked it and like
Mm.
led to this emotional moment. And for me, this time along, like that's basically my number again, so I'm trying to get there.
Yeah, it's like doing reps. Yeah, at the gym, you have to continue. If you want to get bigger, if you want to get stronger, whatever you want, endurance, you have to keep doing it, and you have to build
Yeah.
those calluses. You have to get better at running a mile. It that takes something that, refining a story is just something that you have to do over and over again, and you have to decide what details go where. And I see that in a lot of TV show writing. I see that in some stand up. I see it in movies and everything. And it's just fascinating to me how some people are able to put that all together. And you mentioned, being read to when you were younger. I'm currently reading the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and it is. I told this to somebody earlier. It is such a boring story if you like look at it from a
Ha!
grand scheme.
Ha!
It's
Ha!
so boring. Like to just the first book is them literally just walking a lot of places, and but and all the singing and everything. But the way that Tolkien writes, it's so fantastic, and you get engrossed. And I say the same thing about mystery movies, and it's a skill, and not a lot of people have it. And the people that think they do have it, they either really excel or they can just get by.
hmm I totally hear you on that. I have not read Lord of the Rings. I did read The Hobbit a few years ago, and
Mhm.
I loved how organized it was.
Yes,
It was like
it's
each
very
chapter is this little like game kind of, and I
yeah.
was like, oh, like no wonder it's such a great kids book. Like you read a chapter and go to bed. Um, But yeah, no, I totally hear you on that. I did a speech recently, more like I did a guest lecture recently at a medical school
Mm.
because I talk about medical things in my act, and a doctor saw me and invited me to talk. And one of the students asked me like kind of a similar question, which is like, when did you know that you were like a good storyteller? And I, for me, it was more like I'm drawn to that. And so I worked at it. Like at the beginning, of course, I was like real bad, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that's an important thing too, which is like the faith to just like to keep going and doing it over and over again. And like I don't like I've done my first show at this point like 200 times and like I'm really not that sick of it. Like sometimes after 6 weeks, like you get to that last week, you're like, okay, I could use a couple weeks off.
Right.
But like I did multiple 6 week runs of that show and like loved doing it. Like did
Wow.
not feel that way. And that's just like how my brain works. Um, so I think there's also like I feel a little bit of a compulsion to share.
Mhm.
And one of the nice things about solo storytelling is like it's my side of the story, you know, like I get to give my perspective for an hour. And I like that. And I also am not famous, and so like I feel like I get to like delight people because they're like, "Oh, I just like took a flyer on this show." And then hopefully they're like, "Hey, that was like way better than I thought it would be." Like that's my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, I love the idea of somebody getting the piece of paper and going, I'm interested in this, instead of just going on their phone and looking through and saying, like, I don't know if it's got a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't want to see it. Like, who cares? Who cares? I think the most you lose is an hour of your life. That's it.
Hmm.
There's nothing else. If I see a bad comedian or if I see a bad concert, then who cares? I mean, it's just it's an experience, and now I have something to talk about the next day or the next week.
Yeah, oh my God. There's a line in my first show about like it's really bad art is it's my dream. I want to do this on Subway Takes, which is like bad art is important. So like
Mhm.
seeing something that you don't like and knowing why you don't like it and knowing why it's not for you is like really, really valuable. Like in some ways more valuable. I always in the show it's like great art inspires you, but bad art gets you to do it. And so I think about that with Berbiglia, where it's like, oh, my girlfriend's boyfriend inspired me to start, and then I would start to go to storytelling mics and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I can do this. Like, be as good as these people. Like, I definitely have that ability, or I could get there. And so, however, whatever inspires you to like keep going and keep trying it, and like the repetition to get better, like lean into that.
Yeah, I that's excellent advice, especially for anybody at any point that they're trying to make something artistic in any way. What
Mm.
so you're doing you have solo show, you've done solo shows, you like to do them 100 times, and you seem pretty. If people just look at you right now and they don't go to your Instagram or anything, you seem pretty out there when it comes to just putting down your own work and just doing it. When I talked to Alexis, you and she looked so great together making these sketches for social. How did you guys get to? I don't know. I don't remember if I asked her, but what's your side of the story when you guys got together, and started doing this?
Yeah, so we met online, not on the internet, online at a solo show.
Okay.
At Allison Leiby had a show running in New York off Broadway at the Cherry Lane called Oh God, a show about abortion. And we went to that and we met online and we were like, oh, you're a comedian, like I'll follow you. And then I was like, oh, I'm doing Edinburgh Fringe, like you should come. And then I booked her on, I had like a showcase show and I booked her on that. And then she came to my show in Scotland and really liked it. And we got lunch and she talked about it. She's like, I want to work on a solo show and bring it to Edinburgh, which she has subsequently done.
Yep.
And then one day we went to see a solo show. We're having a cup of coffee afterwards. And very casually, she was like, do you want this piece of fruit? And I said, oh God, yeah, thank you. I feel so much better on the days I have fruit. And she was like, what do you mean? Like, you don't eat fruit every day? And I was like, no. And so we started kind of like, we were like, oh, that could be a good sketch, like the two of us talking about fruit. And so I went over to her apartment and we kind of like improvised it. Like it took like 3 hours and we just sort of like through various takes like improvised it. And to this day, that sketch is our most popular. It's the most viewed sketch we've ever made. It has 10 million views on Instagram.
Wow.
And after the success of that, like, and I will say, not immediately. It took like a little bit of time for us to be like, hey, should we make more of these? And so then we were like, the last way is not sustainable, right? Just like improvise it every time.
Mhm.
And so we did like a couple more, and we've developed a system now. She's really the organized one. Now we have a system with like, we use Slack and we plan things out in Notion and we shoot two or three in a day
Yeah.
and we have guest stars. And so now it's sort of like it's a business that we pay for. But like we've invested time and money, uh, creative time, shooting time, wardrobe time, whatever, into making these sketches. And I don't know how many we've made at this point. I think it's over 20. Maybe it's 20. Maybe it's not even that many, but it's around 20, let's say. And like some have in the millions of views and some are in the tens of thousands and a lot are in the hundreds of thousands. And it's a very rewarding thing to work on. And we
Yeah.
sort of never know which ones are going to work. Like sometimes I'm like, this one, like this one we shot at the end of a 3 hour day. We only had 25 minutes to shoot it. Our lines are not totally memorized. We're like doing it on the fly and like that one gets a million views. We're like
Right.
that one, like the other one we like worked so hard on. But I think from start to finish, it's a thing that we both really love doing, and we're always just like, "Oh, I love writing with you, and it's really fun." And we just literally before I got on with you, I hit accept on the collab request, and we posted one.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I love seeing them. They're so fun, and to know that you write them, that's good too because yeah, they're very funny, and I'm sure that solo writing the solo stuff works out a different part of your brain than what this does, and it's
Oh
great
yeah.
to have those types of collaborations. But I think they're really great, especially compared to I don't want to shit on other people who do the same thing. But there's other people that try so hard and it just doesn't work for me. And but they're very popular and it just doesn't work for who I
Yeah.
am and for
Yeah.
my sensibilities versus I see something that's so simply done. Also, the idea that yes, you put money into it, but it's not that much money. You're not blowing out
Yes,
lights.
yes,
You're
it's
not
not a
doing this.
million dollar. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we also like want it to look. We want it to. It's funny you talk about both these things. Like you didn't even realize that we wrote them. We read them more than we
Mhm.
write them, if that makes sense. Where it's like,
Okay.
oh, we write it until it feels very natural, and so it became really easy to memorize them because we would write them and then we write them together. So we're on a Google Doc, we're on a phone call
Yeah.
typing, and we read it a bunch until it feels really normal. And then like when we shoot them, like you're exactly right. There's no crane. There's no like multiple cameras spinning around. Like it's really, we're trying to, I like to think my storytelling too. I'm trying to eliminate artifice. We're trying to like make it feel as natural as possible, whether that's on stage or on camera. And there's a lot of artifice today. There's a lot
Mhm.
of like you got to get through all the BS to get to the heart of it, and we're trying, at least for me, that is a similarity I see between the solo show and the collaborative video stuff. And I will also say for solo shows, I definitely hit a wall in like 2019, 2020, end of 2019 and going into the pandemic where I was working on the first solo show and I was like, I think I've gotten as far as I can get alone. Like I think I need like real
Whoa.
feedback and real notes. And now my solo show is super collaborative. Like I'm inviting people, I'm getting notes, I'm
Mhm.
meeting with my director, I'm talking to friends about it constantly. Um, I'm doing it a lot and talking to the audience afterwards. Like it is a one person show because I'm the only one on stage, but
Mhm.
like it is not. And that's the thing I learned from Birbiglia too. Birbiglia, like his brother writes with him.
Yeah,
His
Joe's so
brother's like
great.
yeah, Joe, who I know a little bit. He's like on assignment. He's like, ooh, I got to write 2 pages of jokes about blank. And that when Briglia said that, that's when I realized I was like, oh, he's like one man SNL. Do you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like it's SNL in the sense that like there is a team and it does require a lot of people. And I think originally like I was too pure about it and I was like, it's a solo show, it has to be mine. And then you get to a certain point where you're like, oh, all comedy is collaborative. Like when Conan hosts the Oscars, he's not doing it himself.
Right.
Like it would be an insane task to be able to do that. Um, and I think also like who you collaborate says a lot about you. And like it's why my circle is like people I love and trust.
Mhm.
And I think that's important too.
How did you how do you take notes? Like, are you good at accepting what people suggest, and even if it's the audience too saying something, you go, oh, that's pretty good, or oh, that's a shitty idea. What's that for you?
Yeah. That's a great question. There are times when I there are times when I just like dismiss it outright, where like, oh, that's not for me. Most of the time, though,
Mm.
to be honest with you, is the things that people say to me after the shows are really illuminating.
Wow.
And like the things they have questions on, like the show changes all the time based on what people casually say to me. What they want to know more about is really important. Where they'll be like, "Oh, whatever happened to these two people in your show?" And if enough people ask me that, I'm like, "Oh, I have to answer that question."
Right.
You know, and I find it's funny on a comment on a video has almost never been useful or helpful, and a comment in real life is almost always 100% useful in some way.
Okay.
Where like in Rochester, I said one of the shows, I said the show was called Horse Lawyer. I know it's a weird show. I had a couple jokes about that, and I was like, by the end of the show, like you'll know why I called it that. That was like my promise to the audience. And afterwards, a woman came up to me, was like, "Wait, so why did you call it Horse Lawyer?" And I was like, "Wow, I guess I did not answer that question."
Dang.
Thank God she said that because otherwise I would have been like, oh, I did a good job. And her saying that was like so, I was like, oh, it wasn't mean. She was like legitimately curious. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, cool. Like that's such good information. Thank you for saying that to me. And so I think, everyone has gotten notes that like they disagree with or like they don't want to hear or like they think are bad. But in my experience, at least recently, like they've usually been pretty good.
That's so great. That's so smart. I Horse Lawyer, you're right, is a fantastic
I
title.
hope so.
And
It's
then
a little weird.
a show about friendship is also a great title as well. I have trouble with titles. I've always had trouble with titles.
Yeah.
How do you extrapolate yours from your show? Is it just from like from a line or something like that?
Yeah, so the first show had three titles that it kept
Mhm.
changing. At first it was called The Whole Thing, which meant nothing. It was sort of like me being like, I'm going to tell you the whole story. Um, the second title was a show about friendship because it was about a friendship breakup and with like a love triangle. And people would come up to me after the show and be like, "Oh, the girl stinks." And I'd be like, "The show is not about her. It's about me and this other guy." And so I called it a show about friendship to like point people in that direction.
Yeah.
And then my cousin Devin, who's a Daily Show writer, he was like, we were gonna run off Broadway, and I was like, I think I want to like play with the title a little bit. And he was like, oh, like we were chatting about titles, and he kind of gave me like I like Solo, and then it was like Solo colon a show about friendship. We're like, oh, okay, like you can just call it Solo, and then what is it? It's a show about friendship, easy. This new show, again, I can't tell if this is like the first title or the final title. My guess is it's the first title, but I don't know. A big part of the story is that my dad, his career dream was to become an attorney.
Mhm.
And it took him 35 years to do it. He took the LSAT three times,
Wow.
and his score went down every time. And then when he was in his 50s, he went to law school.
Wow.
And before that, he worked in horse racing. And so since he's become a lawyer, he works as a horse lawyer, which is an attorney for people on the racetrack.
Hmm.
And so a lot of the show is about him accomplishing this dream, and then something like really scary happens to me, like on the night he graduates. And so Horse Lawyer is sort of like I'm sort of talking about dreams and how like absurd dreams are. And it's just like a fun thing to say.
Yeah. Lawyer is a very fun thing to say. Have you ever been approached by the George Lucas estate or Disney because you used the name Solo?
I have not, but I would love that I use their logo as a parody on our merch.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Where it
funny.
was like it was Solo, and then underneath it, it's instead of a Star Wars story, it said a Gabe Mollica story. And so I still have medium T-shirts that say that. And I was kind of like, I would love to get sued by Disney
Yeah.
because like the New York Post lawsuit would be like so good. Like I would love to like be written about it. Like the press would be better than like what they could win for. You know what I
Right.
mean? But no, that never happened.
Ah, damn. They're missing out. That George Lucas guy. I don't know if he's litigious, but I assume Disney would be.
I believe he will. I think they would be. And my case would be like, this is better than the Solo movie. Do you know what I mean? Like they should be lucky to have me.
You have to get an endorsement directly from Harrison Ford, and I'm sure if you ask him, he's been so anti Star Wars in the last like decade or 2 decades, he'll be like, I don't
Yeah.
give a shit.
Yeah, I'm sure he would love it. Be like, yeah, something else about. instead of Han Solo. I'm sure he'd love that.
Well, Gabe, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know you have to get ready for these other shows, and it's just it sounds like I've seen the videos. You're an excellent actor. You're a great comedian, and from the snippets of the stories I've heard, you are a really good storyteller. And I just want to see you shine and keep moving forward with these stories.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I was in Chattanooga at some point in the last year, but I hope to bring one of these shows down by you because I have connections in Huntsville and Chattanooga and maybe Atlanta too. So I will
Nice.
keep you posted and hopefully I'm in your part of the world.
That's great. I went to college in Chattanooga.
Oh, no way. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. But now I'm here in the city, struggling to continue working in television as a producer. Oh,
Yeah, man. I understand.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, Gabe. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much again. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chad. It was
All
great
right.
chatting with you, man.
Yeah, same thing. All right. Bye.
All right. See ya.